Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolebarger. It's the week of November 9th, the entire week. It's our time for our Middle East update for our KFIR Fellowship. And let me start by just saying I want to thank Glenn Iverson, Troy Anderson, and Andrew Suitkamp for their participation with KFIR. Make sure that you get signed up for our KFIR Fellowship. You can do it at our website at holygroundexplorations.com. Really, this is a shout out to not just you if you're not signed up, but your friends, people at your church. We think that this daily devotional and then what you're about ready to watch is something that comes along on a weekly basis. This Middle East update is vital. It's not to replace people's fellowships or churches or whatever. It's truly just to supplement. But there's something about being in the Word in these last days and being like the sons of Issachar, understanding what in the world is going on. And that's what we seek to do. So again, get your friends, your family, your small groups, your churches to sign up for KFIR. By the way, that's a Hebrew word, which means young lions. And it's time for the young lions to wake up and roar in the jungle to wake the world up, to wake the church up, really. So again, holygroundexplorations.com. So let's jump into this week's update. All of our materials, by the way, come from Israeli sources or just newsletters, newspapers, or friends from Israel. I just want to give that caveat before we jump in. Well, first things first, headlines. We still don't know for certain, but we know that ISIS is claimed to have brought down the Russian plane in Sinai. British and U.S. officials say that they have information suggesting the Russian jet line that crashed in Egypt on Saturday was brought down by a bomb that was planted by ISIS. I'll tell you, the Sinai is the wild, wild west. Not only ISIS, but Al-Qaeda. It's just one of the many terrorist organizations geographically that really encircle Israel. So we'll have to stay tuned on that. And then, of course, with everything that's going on, can't we just get along? Can't we love one another? Can't there be a two-state solution? Not when in Arabic websites, certain things are written, accusations are made. We'll get to the point of just denying the Jewish state, but you have to understand where incitement comes from. This is blood libel. After the Palestinian UN envoy claims that Israel harvested organs from Palestinians killed by its forces, Israel is now demanding that the UN condemn the lie. Don't believe they will. But anyhow, it just can't go unnoticed. Danny Danon, friend of ours, his quote, he's the current UN ambassador from Israel, by the way. This blood libel by the Palestinian representative exposes his anti-Semitic motives. Once again, the returning of bodies and Israel harvesting organs, I really don't even know what to say. A survey out, 80% of Israeli kids are traumatized by these terror attack videos that circulate on YouTube, circulate on social media sites. It's stated that 64% of Israeli kids are afraid to leave their homes. The Netanyahu Obama meeting, I wouldn't say much ado about nothing. I wouldn't say that at all. I would say it's political. I will say that it's important. So I don't want to degrade it whatsoever. It lasted longer than anticipated. It was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Of course, they spoke about aid, defensive aid to Israel. They discussed Syria, the Palestinians, the incitement, the rioting, the stabbings. Biden was a part of it, as well as the Foreign Ministry Director, Dor Gold. So we're just going to have to wait and see. We've only heard what the media wants us to hear about that. Netanyahu did make the statement that it was the best meeting that he's had at Obama. Now, something to keep your ears open for. It's been brought to my attention that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly urged President Obama to recognize Israel's claim over the Golan Heights during their meeting at the White House on Monday. The president did not respond to it, but if you've been to Israel with us before, you understand the vital strategic nature of the Golan. And for Israel to say, hey, let's make this official, this is Israeli. It'll be interesting to see what transpires, if we can kind of find that thread and where it may lead. We'll talk a little bit more about the BDS, the boycott, divestment, sanctions. There are those that are starting to lash out against it now. In London, the mayor launched out against what he calls the foolish Israel boycott. His quote, "I cannot think of anything more foolish than to boycott a country that, when all is said and done, is the only democracy in the region, the only place that has, in my view, a pluralistic, open society." Again, this is the current London Mayor, Boris Johnson. All right, a couple things. Remember, go to our website, Holy Ground Explorations, and click the blog page. That way you can have the PowerPoint presentation that comes along with this YouTube. Many times I don't have enough time to, and I'm checking my time right now, I don't have enough time to get through all the materials, and so it's important that anything that I don't get to, you can access through this PDF PowerPoint file. Also, there's photos that go along with the presentation. Okay, back to the report, Bibi and Obama. This is an op-ed out of the Jerusalem Post. Netanyahu and Obama must keep things in proportion. ISIS is in Syria and Iraq. Syria is disintegrating. The Russians are here. Palestinian terrorism is back with a vengeance. The Sinai Peninsula, like I just spoke of, is a terrorist hub. And so the issue, these are way too many volatile issues to get sidetracked in any way. We know that there was a comment by Ron Baratz, somebody in the Netanyahu administration, that basically made the statement that Obama was anti-Semitic, and again, Biden blew up, and it's like there's no room for those sort of discussion. You can't speak that way derogatorily about our president, etc. Let's get over that. Let's make sure that these issues that we refer to become the issues and not be sidetracked on some sort of AIDS comments. Now back to the source of the incitements and the strife. We were in Israel when a lot of these stabbings have occurred. We've been on the Via Dolorosa at the St. Stephen's Gate, Lions Gate. We've seen the site where this event happened. The event, of course, is when Suradad Anu Okwashis he stabbed a rabbi, Nehemiah Lavi. He stabbed another person, Aaron Bennett, to death. He injured Bennett's wife and their 2-year-old son. Basically, this is the place you can see in the picture where the woman was looking for help, crying out for assistance, and Palestinians were spitting on her in the Arab quarter, yelling out, "Die, Jew, die," etc. And you walk by this, you can see this memorial that's set up. It's lower than lower. Animals don't treat people that way. And so, or their own that way, I should say. But with all of that's taken place, what happens? The Palestinian Authority has named a street in the honor of the killer. And the mayor of the town said that Halibi, that's his name, is a pride and a badge of honor for the whole village. And it was the municipality of Surada Abdu Kashish. Unbelievable. This is a picture you'll see of Gush Katif. I remember years ago, before the disengagement, I was in Gush Katif. It was a time where Israel was really being torn apart between blue and orange. Sharon was the prime minister, and everybody thought that there would be no way under the war hero Sharon that Israel would give up 1 inch of land, but they did give it up, and it's backfired. As you know, in place of any sort of peace, they've just gotten rockets, tens of thousands of rockets sent over from Gaza. And so when I saw this report and this picture, I remember the flower fields. I remember how gorgeous Gush Katif was. But this was just out this week that Hamas is now firing rockets from Gush Katif. Hamas fired 2 rockets into the Med as part of its ongoing missile tests meant to advance its domestic rocket arsenal ahead of its next terror war against Israel. The rockets were fired from the ruins of Gush Katif, the group of Jewish communities where 85,000 Jews were forcibly removed by the Israeli government during the controversial 2005 disengagement plan. I guess I bring that up because this whole thing with the 2-state solution and Israelis removing their settlements from the West Bank or whatever, once again, it's just naive to think that there's going to be 2 states for 2 people. I'll tell you what, when disengagement begins from the West Bank, you're not going to have peace. You're going to have rockets that are going to be launched as nearby as Ben Gurion Airport is going to be. History does not lie to us in regards to what's going to be next. When this so-called 2 states for 2 people, this peace solution takes place. You've heard me say it before. It is not P-E-A-C-E, it is P-I-E-C-E, and it's dividing the land. And if you want to know what God feels about that, then read the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 2, and going forward. Again, the real problem, this is again from an Israeli source, the truth is that the reason that we don't have peace with the Palestinians is not because of the settlements or the territorial disputes. The issue truly is that the Palestinians refuse to recognize the Jewish state in any boundary. That's the truth. If you recognize the problem, you might just find the solution. And you can read the rest of that for yourself. Interesting times. I know I'm running out of time here. You know, the hub of the violence these days is basically the tomb of Joseph, which is being torched and burned up in Shechem. And then, of course, you've got Hebron, and think the cave of Machpelah, think about Caleb. And then, of course, you have the Temple Mount. These are the 3 hubs. Interestingly enough, all 3 of these are spoken of in the scriptures. And the one thing that's clear is ultimately Israel paid in full for each one of these sites. Again, take your time. This is entitled Interesting Times. There's a picture of the cave of Machpelah and Hebron on here. Please take the time to read that article. Also, there's an article, a picture on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions from the European Union. The label that they want to put on products that say basically boycott Israeli produce. Before you buy, stop, check the label. And so I'll let you read that for yourself. One last thing, I'll give you a quote of the week. I know this is pretty radical. I know it's hawkish, but listen up. Let me say something clearly to the Zionists, something that should reach all those enemies, whether left, right, or secular, or religious, or extremists, regardless of their appearance or the color of their skin. And this is coming from a Muslim, so make no doubt about it. They are on the land of Islam, and the Muslims on the land of the Prophet's nocturnal journey. Any of our enemies living on this land must understand that they have no place on this land. Brother, could you bring me a copy of the Quran? This is what he's asking for. They bring it to him. He puts his hands on it. I will swear on the Quran that not a single Jew will remain on this land, not a single settler will remain on this land. Absolutely not. Now, this was a Muslim television host and a Hamas cleric, Sheikh Avad Abu Funan. Why can't we have peace? Why can't there be two states for two people? Why can't Jews understand? Why can't the world understand? The message is explicit, and this message is crystal clear. This is Dan, and I appreciate your prayers. I'm filming this from Otay Lakes. It's about a mile away from my son's house. My wife and I are down here being with our son. He's fighting cancer, and we appreciate your prayers. Doctors say it's incurable, but we believe in a God of miracles. Oftentimes I'm now referring to myself in my writings and in my presentations as Jairus, and you know that story. A dad desperate that his child would be healed. So again, I appreciate your prayers, and we'll be coming to you from this location, or maybe not this here, but from Southern California over the next weeks and months to come. So with that, let me wish you shalom, and remember to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. One last thing, since I'm down here, since we've canceled the first half of next year's Israel tours, I'm making myself available to come to churches, small groups, fellowships, to simply, it's almost like I probably should have brought a shofar, to blow the shofar, to wake people up and simply answer the question, why should Christians care about Israel? I think it's vitally important that the church wakes up and understands the centrality of Israel in God's plan as things wrap up. So if you're interested in having me come, please email me. I'll give you my email address. It's Dan, D-A-N, at hgkfir.com. HG, that would be Holy Ground, KFIR, KFIR.com. So email me there, and we'll see what we can work out. So with that, shalom and goodbye.